Yeah.
The game room, I don't know if that's in their apartment.
So I didn't mean to, but I think we're streaming now. So I was playing around with some settings, and I think we might already be going live. So hold on. Let's just so you're aware.
Well, hello, everybody.
Well, I mean, no one's watching yet. I can't really tell if we're actually live yet.
Go to Twitch.
Because we're not on Twitch, right? We're on YouTube. Because it says, like, if I'm on the YouTube channel and it doesn't show us there, but on OBS it says that we are streaming, and it logged us into chat.
Oh, we're streaming. I'm on it.
We are?
Yep.
Well, hello. I don't know if anybody's watching or not. Would you like to just roll with it, or do you want me to stop and then we can reset and actually go live when we're ready?
Fine.
Well, hello. And welcome to Tabletop Digest. This is the new monthly ? Streaming show that Chris and I are going to start doing over here at the Tabletop Journeys YouTube channel. It's called Tabletop Digest because two old farts talking about gaming didn't test well. My name is Michael, and I was one of the founders of the RPG Academy. I'm the lead organizer of Acadecon, the gaming convention. I wrote my own game last year called Action 12 Cinema. And I've been podcasting and streaming for like 12, 13 years now. And one of my very best friends in the world who also does this is Chris. And we started a show on the RPG Academy. Actually, we didn't start it. Caleb started it, but we took it over, called Detention, which was one of my favorite things that we've ever done. And this is not Detention, but it's a lot like Detention. Chris, tell everybody who you are.
I'm Chris. I've been doing this podcast thing for about 9 years. I was one of the founders of the Redemption podcast, which is now called Smuggler's Blues. It's the still longest running Star Wars AP until somebody else tells me they've been doing it longer. I did a lot of stuff with the RPG Academy and some other podcasts, and just love talking about geek stuff and nerding out with good friends and just chatting. So, and this is our new show.
This is our new show, which again is not Detention, but it is very much going to be like Detention. So if people like Detention, this will be like that. I need you to vamp just a second as I do some things. So tell us more about yourself, Chris, or share things with our audience that no one's watching yet.
Let's see. Love being put on the spot. Yeah, I've got, I'm married. We got a 20-year-old son. He's also kind of a nerd, but just a little bit different nerd than I am. He's more of your computer science, computer gaming nerd. He still does a little of the role-playing stuff, but not quite as deep as I do. He's a pretty good egg. I got an odd kid. He loves to show up and just help out and work. And, the first time I brought him to a Catacon, I want to say 8 years ago, so when he was 12, his favorite thing was sitting at the registration booth and checking people in. And I asked him why, and he goes, "It's not often I get to tell adults what to do and where to go." And I was like, "That's fair." Now I'm entertained because now your kids are coming, and they're 13, 14, right? Something like that.
13 and 14, soon to be 13, 15. The oldest has a birthday next month.
So it's entertaining to me to watch them be involved with stuff and just be like, "Oh, yep, there they go to run games. There they go to do this." And I'm like, "Yep, I've already watched my kid do it." So it's kind of neat to watch another parent go through it and see the the nerves you have when they go to run a game. And you're like, "Oh, I really hope this game goes good because I want my kid to succeed and have him be happy." And I just sit back and kind of smile and go, "It's going to be what it is. If it's good, it's good. If it's bad, then they learn from it." So it's kind of fun to watch that stuff.
Right.
Other than that, I work in the medical field, working in home medical equipment. So I help people with oxygen equipment, sleep therapy, different things like that. I get to run 2 offices in Grand Rapids, 2 of the biggest offices, and been doing that for 20 years. You can tell by all the gray hair and some that's not there anymore. It's been a fun journey with that.
Oh,
I like watching people and having them learn and grow in their careers and watching people get help that they need. So I always tell everybody, I'm the industry that you probably don't want to call me because that means you aren't in the best health or you've injured yourself. But it's nice to know that we're there. So
all right. I'm almost done. The
and
one,
we
so
went through the quote storm of the century that was supposed to hit us last night, and I have a whole whopping 2 inches of snow on my back porch here in Grand Rapids.
we
So
missed school this week. I'm down in Southeast Kentucky just because we weren't even like really scheduled to get anything, but we just got like a quarter of an inch, but it was really icy. And I live
yeah,
in the boondocks, so those hollers, when they get icy, it takes a full day to thaw out.
yeah,
So
yeah, they canceled school yesterday with the anticipation of they were calling for 12 inches of snow, and I'm like, huh, well, I brought my computer home, so worst case. And I woke up this morning, I was like, really? Storm of the century? Nothing. This is disappointing. I want a career where I can hype things up and then nobody fires me when I'm completely wrong. So
yeah. All right, so just quick to jump in. So I think we're live. I think everything's going. It looks like I'm in chat, but I'm still in chat as the RPG Academy. So I'll try to get that fixed for next time. The one big change that I'm doing this time is I am not wearing headphones because apparently Zoom has an echo feature so that even though Chris's audio is just coming into my room, my mic is not supposed to broadcast that because if you've ever done that, it's really awful. There's a big echo. So if anyone does end up watching now or in the future, let me know if that was working because if we were getting an echo, that's awful. And I'll put the headphones back on, but it's just kind of annoying. So I was trying to avoid it. So we're going to see how things go. So yeah, so I don't think anyone's currently watching, but we kind of expected that this wasn't really promoted or anything, and doesn't matter. We're going to do it anyways because we do it because we love it. But if you're not familiar with our other show, there is a little bit of structure and format. We're going to play around with that a little bit here, but it's mostly going to be just Chris and I talking about the things that we love about gaming. And this being December, this might be our only show because technically we're supposed to start in next month. So we thought we could do a look back at 2024, talk about some of our highlights, some things that happened that we're very happy about, or we're just excited that has come to pass, and then maybe look a little bit forward at what's coming up in 2025. So the first thing that I'm going to share is I'm going to jump in to let Chris know. So you may be aware, are you familiar with Spotify and Wrapped? Mm-hmm. It's this big thing they do every year. They basically like show everybody who listens to a show, like you can get your personal Wrapped. It is like, these are the shows you listen to, or this is the music you listen to most. But they also have that for creators. And so creators get a chance to see like how many people are listening to their shows, which episode was the most popular, growth, that kind of thing. Are you familiar with that at all?
nope.
Okay. Well, it's a thing and it exists. And so I got our Spotify Wrapped for the RPG Academy today. Let me see. Oh, where'd it go?
Interesting.
And I wanted to share with you some of our exciting updates and information about the RPG Academy as we start this new journey, tabletop journey, into tabletop journeys for 2025. All right. So, come on. So we gained 21% followers. I don't know what the numbers are, but we went up 20% in number of followers. 80% of our listeners have us ranked as a top 10 show, which means they said this is one of our top 10 show, and 50 some people said we were a top 5 show. Here it is. Our number one episode for the entirety of 2024, it got more than 470% more listens than any other episode. Which episode do you think that is, my friend?
Ooh. I'm sure we had a detention that had a lot of guests on it, so I'm assuming it's one that had a pretty big name, or even a name. I'm not sure.
The Campaigns, Dragonlance, episode 1.
Oh,
The campaign that you were running that I am terrible about updating. You're not great at the audio, but I'm way worse at getting the ones uploaded with it when you do get finished. But yeah, the campaign that you're running was actually our most popular episode last season. And I know that's been, again, because of my ineptitude and life, we have not been great about keeping those updated. But I thought that was a nice thing. I wanted you to know that people are listening to it. So thank you for doing that.
Oh, nice. Awesome. Yeah, and I'm horrible on social media, so I never listen or pay attention when people comment. I did have people at a Catacon come up and ask how it was going, and I said, well, as soon as I can get the last 2 episodes edited, and every time I've sat down to do it, life has smacked me and said, hey, we have to go take care of this now, or hey, we have to go take care of that, or hey, you're sick, or hey, like the last time, my internet went down and I couldn't download the last episodes. I'm like, great. So I'm hoping to get it done this weekend. Knock on wood.
So
Knock
I
on wood,
will
this
try to get
bronchitis goes away.
Well, yeah, but I'm going to try to get the ones that are done uploaded and get them scheduled as well, so we can finish out that campaign in the year. I will say too that our audience at RPG Academy has been declining for some time. It's just, I think, other than the really big shows, I think that's kind of common. But according to Spotify, way more people are listening than I have seen in downloads. So I don't know if that's because Spotify doesn't count as a download. But like when I go to the tracking software that I use to see how many people are listening, like it says we've got like 3 to 4 times as many listens per episode based on Spotify than we show downloads, which still puts us way down from where we were in our heyday. But it makes me feel a little better about some of the things that we were doing, to be honest with you.
I actually looked that up once, and if my internet research was correct, unless they click download on Spotify, if they just hit play, it doesn't count as a download. Because Spotify has already got it somewhere.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Of course, I'm not a guru on that. I didn't do I still don't do the technical stuff on things. I'm just the face.
You're just a pretty face.
Yeah.
All right. So it looks like there are a couple people watching. So thank you for being here. Again, this is our test run, our trial episode of Tabletop Digest. And we are playing around with settings and audio. So if anyone is watching live, please let me know if there's any sort of echo that is happening, because I'm trying a new audio setting so that I don't have to wear headphones while Chris and I are doing this, but I will certainly put them on if the audio is unlistenable. But let's get into the meat of the show. What we were planning on doing tonight was, again, a look back. And so I guess technically I started that with the Spotify thing. But we didn't really talk about this beforehand, so I thought we might just go back and forth. So give me one thing from 2024 that you just want to share that you're excited about, or you want to, just brag about a little bit for yourself.
2024. So the faculty retreats we do in the spring and the fall, like those are great. I love going to them, but the fact I could get a couple of my friends to finally go that I know haven't had the best couple years, and getting them involved and getting them to just be able to relax and unwind at that time when I know they really needed it. That was really important to me. And I'm really glad they could do that, again, knowing what they went through in the last year. Being able to have a group of people they can just come and kind of forget about everything that's going on and just sit in a room and play board games and goof off and kind of forget about the world. Those are really important times for me and for them, and I think for everybody.
Yeah.
So I definitely love going to those and always look forward to them. So what's something you've got on your list?
So we do the show through Zoom. That's how we look and see it, see and hear each other. But using OBS to broadcast, it doesn't pick that up, picks you up, but not me. All that to say that I have a background on Zoom of Action 12 Cinema, which is the game that I kickstarted 2023 at the end of the year. But it's not showing in this particular stream. But that is absolutely one of the big highlights for me. So again, it technically happened in 2023, but the process went into 2024, and I fulfilled the Kickstarter this year. So it was early. I think it was on February, March of 2024. The books got to me. I started sending them out to backers, people who had backed the Kickstarter. I partner with IPR, Indie Press Revolution, and they have basically most of the extra copies. I have a few, and so people can still buy them if anyone's interested. But then it got nominated for an Ennie, which, as I said then, I say now, no one was more surprised than I was. But it was very validating for me, this kind of silly idea that I had for this silly idea for a game, mostly because I love D12s and I just wanted an excuse to get people to roll a bunch of them. I just wanted to kind of like challenge myself to do it. And it kind of turned into a real thing. And with everything that I do, it's only because there were people around me who were truly talented and willing to give of their time, effort, and energy, whether it be my artists. Like, again, I can see the cover that Brian Patterson did, the interior art that was done by a couple of my friends, Zach and Michael. Tom helped, Caleb helped, you helped, play testing, editing, Ian from the Undercommon Taste podcast, Rue from Rook and Rasp was my editor or a graphic designer, layout person, but all these people who came together to help me make this thing a reality. And then it got validated by saying, not only was it the silly thing that you did, but it's actually pretty good. And just so 2024, I mean, there are a lot of things I'm very excited about, but that was the first thing that came to mind when I thought about my 2024.
Excellent. I will say for me, I know we talk a lot about a Catacon.
Mm-hmm, we do. And
Always
it's on my list.
I will say, and I'm hoping I'm not jinxing anything. I'm knocking on my wooden table. But this year, in my opinion, went smoother than we've ever had. I don't remember any, we didn't have jackhammers going off at the beginning of the games. We didn't have random people just walking through wearing, MMA gloves and sweating on our stuff. And everything just seemed to flow good. The new format worked well. I loved having the charity there, and having them do the raffle was not just amazing for us taking work off our plates, but when I talked to them on Saturday afternoon, they said, your attendants are super generous. We've made more here than we have our last two. Mm-hmm. Not combined, but the last two that they had done. And they said, you're probably not going to top like an Origins for us. And I'm like, well, I mean, not unless somebody really famous shows up and sells it for us. But they told me that they're more than happy to come back and help, that it went well for them and for us. And to me, that was a huge bonus. And for those that have never run a con or volunteered, even something like a raffle like that takes 4 or 5 people's time.
Oh, it's one of the most time intensive things that we do there. And again, I won't say there's no benefit because it gives our attendees something to do and care about. But monetarily, we've never got anything. We did 1 year because we didn't know we weren't allowed to. But ever since then, we've given money to charity. So yeah.
And to just have them succeed and have people get excited about it, that was just huge. And it allowed, it allowed me to run more games this year. And that was nice because there are people who, if I don't run games, come up and go, hey, how come you didn't run anything this year? And I'm like, well, I was busy with this or that. And they're like, oh, I was hoping you'd run this or that again. And I'm like, sorry. I will say the games that I ran at a Catacon went really well. The Star Wars Dread, super nervous to run it. I've only run it a couple times before. And I went into it with one line on a piece of paper that just says, 5 Padawans stranded on Malachor, things happen. Mm-hmm. And 2 hours later, I'm like, oh, we're supposed to be ending soon. And the player's like, oh. I'm like, I mean, I don't have anything to do. And they're like, us neither. And then it was an hour and a half later when we finally ended, and I could tell that a couple were like, oh, I'm sad I knocked the tower over. I was really enjoying the story. But at the same time, the way the game ended, like I gave Kevin all the credit in the world. I mean, no spoilers here, but his Padawan's on the ground, the other Padawan's in the ship. He's lifting the ship up so it can get up into space. I said, all right, you need to get on the ship now. Pull 3 bricks or something like that. And he walked up and just looked at the tower and looked at the tower and looked at it again. put his hands on his hips, and I'm like, oh, he is strategizing. He is going to make sure he's sets it up so that the last player has a hard time. And then he just smacked the tower, knocked it over. And when I look at your character and I push with all my force to get you in the air, and I say, you have to tell the Jedi what you saw here. And I just stood up and high-fived him like that.
Yeah.
I could not have planned a better ending. I go, the way you did that was beautiful. I go, I thought you were really strategizing. And he just goes, no, I wanted to build up the tension until I just smacked the tower over. I was like, well, you succeeded, sir.
Yeah.
Like, you won. So
having players that understand the sense of like drama and like how to really like luxuriate and like draw out a scene, but not too much, but just like that right amount. I mean, it's like worth their weight in gold. So yeah, that sounds amazing.
yeah, it was a huge highlight. And running Dread for me is awesome. I love watching people pull the bricks out and watch the tension. The times I've run it before, though, everybody is on the edge of their seat, like facial expressions, and "Ooh, don't pull that one."
Mm-hmm.
Room was the exact opposite. You could have heard a pin drop every time somebody went to pull a brick. They weren't trying to make the tower complicated. They were trying to help each other. They're like, and I mean, there was even a time I'm like, okay, I pulled that one, so you can pull this one next. And I'm like, wow, I'm gonna have to start making you pull more bricks because you guys are just being too nice to each other. And it went so well. I was so happy with it. And I love it when I challenge myself and go into a game with just one line and say, can I improvise a story with 5 people and see how it goes, and to have it be a success. Especially when, well, 3 of them are complete strangers to me. I knew Kevin and Amanda, but
Right.
I don't game with them every day. So it's not like they were normal players for me. So to try to read the room and build stuff up was nice. So what were your highlights from a Catacon?
Well, one thing I want to take a step back. So first of all, Josh is here in chat, at least for a little bit. He said he would try to stop in. So thank you
Hey,
for
Josh.
giving us this new home. And I'm glad it seems to be working and sounding well. So thank you, Josh. But I want to talk a little bit about Dread, just in case, we've been friendly with Tabletop Journeys for quite a long time. But I, haven't listened to every episode they've put out. I don't know if they've talked about Dread very much, and it's something we talk about quite a lot because it's one of our favorite games to run at conventions. I've run a Scooby-Doo Dread scenario for a very long time. You now have been doing the Star Wars for a couple of years. We worked on it together, but I think you've definitely owned it more than I have. But I love Dread. It is a tabletop role-playing game that is designed mostly for like horror type of stories. So think like Friday the 13th, slasher, camp counselors, characters get taken out. But the only mechanic really is a dread tower, a Jenga tower, tumbling tower, if you use the IP generic one. And essentially the wonkiness, my favorite word, of the tower as it gets more and more pulled and gets, unstable, sort of creates a sense of dread. That's why it's called Dread in the players that translates into the characters. And, I've talked about this a lot with D&D is it's hard to do a scary D&D game because there's so much, there's so much power that the players have in that game. And there's also a disconnect between even like when bad things happen a lot of times, but when you're staring at the tower and it's getting very, very wonky and you have to pull a brick or your character fails or falls or dies, whatever the case may be, it really does translate to that sense of dread. So I absolutely love the game Dread. I run it all the time, but I always like to do it a little bit on its head, which is again where the Scooby-Doo came from, and then now the Star Wars one that you're running. So absolutely love Dread. If anyone listening now or in the future, if you get a chance, it's when I go to conventions, it's literally one of the first things I search for is Dread. I try to play Dread as often as I can at conventions. I try to run it as often as I can. It's a great game. Josh had said that they haven't talked much about Dread. So yeah, so I'm glad we had a chance to bring it to the channel. I will talk more about it any chance I get. He did bring up the idea of trying to do an AP. We did do that one time. It's kind of hard to run an AP for Dread unless you're all physically in the same space because you're supposed to use a Dread tower, obviously, or Jenga tower. But we did it one time over Zoom and it actually worked. There's a couple tweaks we made to it, but I would certainly love to do it. And especially the time we did it for RPG Academy, we didn't record it. And it is one of my greatest regrets about everything I've ever done with the Academy is that I do not have a recording because it was an amazing game. So yeah, we can absolutely figure out a way to do it on a live stream or a podcast form for you guys, Josh. I'd love to do that.
I wonder if there's a way to do it on Tabletop Simulator.
Ooh, that could work. So the way I don't think you were part of that, but the way we would do it, because Kaylee was there, Quinn from Swallows of the South, Caleb was one. I don't remember who the fourth player was. But the way we did it is everyone had their own Jenga tower at their own physical space. And anytime a player had to pull, all the other players also pulled from their own towers, but they were allowed to like cheat. So they could like hold the tower, make it steady, but each tower had the same number of pulls. So when you had to pull for your turn, it was quote unquote just as wonky as any of the others would be. It wasn't the same bricks, like we didn't go to that level, but hey, you know, they pulled two, everyone pulls two, that type of thing. And it worked pretty well. So I think that's how I would do it again. But I don't know if there is a virtual Jenga tower on tablet, but that might be something to look into. We could all do VR. That might be a version of that. But for me, yes, a Catacon, and again, this is a new show. There might be people listening. A Catacon is the convention that we run. It's based on the RPG Academy. That's what's called a Catacon. And this past year was our 12th year. Anyone who knows me knows I love the D12. So it was a very exciting year in general. But it was by far the best ran a Catacon ever. And not just because of the charity situation, but like all the elements combined. And, you know, part of it's iteration. We've been doing it for a while. So every time we get a little better, we problem solve, but we also change things a little bit. And so, you know, there's trial and error, which does involve error, but I really could not have been happier other than if like another 100 people had shown up. That would have been great. But yeah, I was so excited with the Catacon. All the iterations came together, and we are already planning for next year. And one of the things that I generally try to do, because it's a very stressful time for me, is usually after a Catacon, there's a couple weeks while I ride the wave of excitement, but then I want to hibernate. I don't even want to think about the Catacon for 6 months. And this year we're like, no, we've already had a planning meeting. We've got people that are breaking into different groups and like committees, and we have like team leads assigned, and we're already making progress on next year. The one big frustration, I guess, is we loved our setup this year, the physical building space that we were in. It's still at the Dayton Convention Center, but we had a different room set up, and we are not able to have the same one next year. There's just different reasons all compiled together. So we are once again, it's not even the setup we've had before. It's a brand new setup we've never had before. So we are having to like start over on what is the physical room going to layout going to look like. We definitely want our charity partners, Sanctuary Homestead, to join us. But where we're going to put them, like, so again, it's not like it's hard, but it's work that we shouldn't have to do, that we have to do again. But yeah, the number of people, the number of events, it being our 12th year, I was so excited. Lee Wanika from Tabletop Journeys came out. Josh has been to one before, but he wasn't able to come to this one. And I could not have been happier other than if just an extra 100 people would have shown up. And that's what next year's for, right? Next year, we're going to try, we grew like by about almost 10%. So we're hoping next year will be about the same, and that will finally get us over that 600 attendee mark. And yeah, so just super, super duper excited. I'm a convention goer in general, which again is something you will learn more about me as we do these shows, because I'm sure I'll be talking about all the conventions I go to. I have one scheduled for next month. But we were going to talk about 2024 longer, but I might just jump ahead just because the natural segue. But one of the things that you and I are both very excited for 2025 is we're going on a cruise together, my friend, to play some D&D.
Yes, we are. I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, why don't you tell us all about it?
I mean, it was really your kind of idea. We were getting on to do detention one day, and you said, hey, how would you and Melissa want to, go on a cruise? And I was like, well, I mean, we've talked about it. And you're like, well, here's the idea. Let's go on the D&D cruise. While you and I are playing D&D, Melissa and Val can go do other things. Yeah. And they're still working on what they want to do. And I was like, oh, let me ask my wife. And I know in the past, whenever I've said, hey, honey, let's get together, and the guys are going to go do guy things, and the women can go do women things, that I get a very, dirty look. And I never mean it that way, but sometimes that's just how things kind of worked out. So when I said to her, I go, hey, Michael has this crazy idea. And I explained it to her. She's like, okay. And I was like, that's it? She's like, yeah, sounds fun. And I just jumped right on the computer and just started hitting book tickets.
Yeah.
And then after I hit book and I'm like, okay, I gotta get the credit card. She's like, by the way, how much is it? And I'm like, oh, click. Oh, the credit card's going to get charged this much. And she was like, okay. And I expected to get the how much, when is it? And she just said, all right, and it didn't happen quite that quick because we both had to make sure we could get the time off of work and stuff like that. But, her and I have already started looking at the shore excursions, which we've already eliminated the rent your own floating cabana for $6,000 for 3 hours.
No, not at all.
That's not definitely not in the budget, but I know she wants to do one of the zip lines. I found one called Sip and Paint where they have different drinks, but they bring different things from Haiti and you sit around and paint them and they teach you how to paint them. And I said, I said, so it's kind of like painting minis only with cultural stuff.
Oh, okay.
And for people that want to have an alcoholic beverage, there are some. For those that don't want to drink, there's other stuff. So, like, that sounds relaxing versus, mountain climbing or snorkeling with sharks or whatever else was on there. I know the swimming with pigs entertained me, but Melissa kind of went, that might be fun. And I'm like, it's just a pig. Like, I don't know. I guess I don't get that one, but.
Yeah, I've swam with dolphins and it was okay. Like, it wasn't anything special, so I don't guess pigs would be better.
I grew up in a redneck town. I've ridden a pig. I've fed pigs. I mean, I've had friends that were farmers, so.
I tried to chase a pig at a county fair once, like the grease pig thing. I did that when I was a kid.
Yeah, they're faster than you think.
Yeah, and they're hard to get a hold of, especially when they're greased.
Yeah, and they're smarter than you think too. So, but other than that, I'm very curious. After talking with Neil, I assumed the 3 days we'd be gaming would be like one shot. It's like, oh, you go to this table, and then you go to that table, and he's like, oh no, every morning you stay with the same GM, and your game grows, and your character levels up. And I'm like, oh, that's neat. But then after 3 days, I'm going to be like, but now what's my character going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Like, one shots are fine because I'm like, it's over.
Right, yeah.
Yay, we win. But now you're going to get me invested in 3 or 4 sessions? I don't know. We'll see. I'm excited for it. I've also already looked at the ship, and I mean, there's an ice rink in it. There's an arcade. There's, there's just a ton of stuff to do on the boat too. And we'll have time to do that stuff at night, it sounds like, because we only game for 2 sessions. So there's time to do things at night. I'm curious to see what entertainment they put on the boat. I'm trying to think, there was something else I saw on the boat that I thought was pretty funny.
Is there a casino? Pretty sure there is.
There is.
Okay.
Yeah, but I'll spend maybe an hour there.
Yeah, there was a period of time before the podcast started where my obsession was Texas Hold'em. When that became like a big thing, it was on ESPN, like all the tournaments started, I was hardcore into that. And we ran a poker league at my house. And I'm not great at poker. I'm good enough to know that I'm not ever going to be good enough to actually make money, but I still really enjoy it. So usually if there's a reasonable price tournament where it's not, I'm not going to play a cash game, but I'll put down $50 or $100 and then just, play a tournament, see what happens. And usually I have a lucky number. It's actually not 12, but I've had a lucky number since I was very little. And I usually will go up to a roulette at some point and just drop $5 or $10 on that number and then walk away, hit or not. Most of the time it doesn't hit, but twice I've done that and actually just hit. And it's like 30 something to 1. So I'm probably about even on the number of times I've done it. And when it happens, it's really cool. So I don't want to spend like hours at the casino, but I'll check to see if there's a tournament that I could get into, which, obviously if you don't want to do that, that would be fine. And I want to be clear too, like I am very lucky. The marriage I have, I am a happy man. I'm a lucky man. But my wife really isn't into the gaming like I am. She likes board games and card games. Again, when we played the poker league, she actually did very well in that, but she's never really been into the role-playing thing. So, and we go on cruises, not a lot, but we go on cruises 3 or 4 times. It's one of my favorite vacation types because really good food and I can sleep like the dead because I get the interior cabin where it's no lights and I will sleep like 15 hours. So cruises are like one of my favorite vacations, but she wants to go and do all the things. that I don't want to do. And so this kind of works out very well, not necessarily like man and things or girl things, but just things I care about, things she cares about. So I am very excited that, and she's very excited that she will have someone that might want to do those same things, like go to the shows and the events and everything else. So again, we're looking forward. The world may not even exist come March of next year or April, but assuming this goes to plan, this might be like a routine thing for us. Like if they have a good time and we have a good time, I'm thinking we sign up again. And I know you and I had talked about maybe being DMs, because we know the reason I'm going is because of Neil Powell and Rich Howard, who are some of the DMs that are on there. But I was nervous, like even as much DMing as I've done, DMing as I've done, I was nervous about doing it on the ship as like a quote unquote professional. But once I see how it goes, I might decide to do that in the future, which then obviously costs less because we actually get paid to be there as dungeon masters. But again, that's for far, far in the future. This is just, I think, it's April, right? When our cruise is? Okay. Yeah. And I'm ziplining. I'm all for that too. That's one of the few excursions I'm also interested in doing.
Yeah. And I looked up, I was like, it's way up the mountain. Are we going to be climbing 50 flights of stairs? One of them, you ride a golf cart up to get there. I'm like, this is truly a lazy man's excursion, because they take you up a golf cart, you stand in line, and then you lay down on a thing and you just fly through the air.
Yep. Our last cruise that we did a couple of years ago, I did a zip line, and the scariest part, because I mean, I'm not necessarily afraid of heights, but just I'm a reasonable person. So at certain points, it's going to affect you. But it was actually climbing up the platform, because once you got to the top of the mountain, it was basically like a telephone pole with like just a staircase. Climbing up that is where my legs started like shaking. And the thing is, I was only like 50 feet off the ground, but that was scarier than when they actually hooked me to the thing and I'll go flying into outer space. That should have been the scary part, but it wasn't. So we'll see how it goes. But if I get up there, I'll do it.
Yeah, I'm with you. Once I get up there, put me in the harness. I'm just going to sit down and let me go.
Yeah.
Like, don't ask me to pull a lever to let me go. Yeah. You're gonna give me a gentle nudge, and I'll be fine. I saw one online the other day and it's got to be somewhere in Asia, and it said you're 500 feet in the air, and you're sitting in a swing, and they drop you through this platform, and I don't know how far down you go. But I watched that and went, I don't think I could do that one.
Yeah, no. Falling straight down, like either the big swings or the bungee, no. I'm never going to jump out of a plane unless it's on fire. But zip lining, there's something that my brain will wrap around that's safer. But yeah, I've seen those where they're like, it's just like an abyss, it's darkness, and there's like fall. No. If I do it, I might do it once, because I would be dead when they got to the other side. I would have had a heart attack and left my body.
I'd either have a heart attack or find it's the greatest thing in the world. And then I'm there, at closing, like trying to bribe the guy, like, just one more ride, man. One more ride. Like,
you're like a junkie.
So that's my fear with something like that, but a little off course. But nice. I'm definitely, obviously, very excited for the cruise. I've never been on a cruise. I have an interior cabin like you do too, so I'll have to set an alarm. Otherwise, I'll do the same thing you will and sleep 15 hours and not care, because it's kind of in a sensory deprivation room. And it'd be nice. But I'm excited for that. What other things are you excited for?
Well, I did want to jump in again in case there are people watching now or in the future. So the idea is that Chris and I are going to start doing a live show at least monthly, probably every other week. But we're going to kind of see how things go. And it'll be much like what we used to do at detention. So there will be a little bit more structure. This was, again, we wanted to make sure the streaming would work. So that's really what we're doing tonight, is testing the stream to make sure that everything works, all the technology, that kind of thing. But when we do these in the future, there will be a little bit more focus on actual like tabletop advice, talking about the games that we've ran or going to run, the prep that we do, talking about monsters. Like we have some thoughts on how you can reskin and reuse monsters, different things. So hopefully you enjoy the banter of two old guys talking about games that they love, but in the future it might be a little bit more applicable to you as someone who wants to learn how to run games, or I like to say that a bad example, you can have a good example of a bad example. So sometimes we try things and they fail miserably, and we'll share with you like what went wrong. So hopefully give you some advice to make your games better. So that's what we're ultimately going to do with this show. Tonight, we're just kind of testing things out, and just, we haven't talked in a while because he's been sick, and we just like each other and we like talking to each other. But as I mentioned, I go to a lot of conventions, and one of my goals for next year is to go to more conventions than I've ever gone to before. I am very fortunate. I live in a place where there's a lot of conventions around me, so I don't have to travel very far. I don't have to get on a plane to go to most of these conventions. Most of them are kind of small, like a Catacon sized, but though Gen Con is not, but it's also very close. And most of these, I know someone, so I go crash on a couch. I just want to give people the wrong impression. I'm not like dropping 2 G's at a hotel every time. Like, I basically sleep on someone's couch, or I'm in a room with like 8 other people sleeping in a sleeping bag, because I love conventions so much that I'll do that. But the big change this year, last couple of years, is I'm now bringing my kids. Not to all of them. Gen Con is still, that's like my time. But all the other conventions, basically, if the kids can go, they can go. So my first one of the new year is River City Con, which is in Louisville, Kentucky. That's about 2 hours from me. And I am taking the boys to that one. I got a cousin who lives in town, so I'm going to stay at their place. So I'm just excited about all the different conventions I'm going to get to go to. So River City Con's on the list. Sin City Con is on the list. Cincy Con, those are 2 different conventions, both in Cincinnati. Lexicon, Origins, Gen Con, Catacon, which I do count, and the D20 Cruise, which I also count. So I think that's like 6 events I'm going to next year. And that's definitely some of the things that we will be talking about on the show, is what I'm signing up for, what I enjoy, all those types of things. And also, we want to hear from anyone listening now or in the future. Please comment. What are you liking about this show or format? What are you not liking? What sort of things would you want us to talk about, so that we can try to provide that content more applicable to what you would want to get from the show. So what about you? What else are you excited about, Chris?
So you heard me rant one time after I went and did an actual LARP.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, you were very excited.
For 27 years, I've done this kind of more sports oriented, kind of full contact foam fighting, much more competitive. I'll be turning 50 this year. My competition is dropped very quickly. I don't have that same drive I used to have to go out and practice and stuff. And I had a friend go, "Hey, come do this LARP." Well, I tried one years ago, did not have a good experience, and just said, "Yeah, that's not for me." He said, "No, come out and hang out." So wife was out of town. I didn't want to just sit around twiddle my thumbs all weekend or doing housework, which were my 2 options. So
yeah, of those 2, I would have chosen a LARP also.
yeah, so I chose to go to the LARP. I went there. I didn't prep, because they're like, "Oh, make sure you have a backstory for your character. We'll tie it in." I was like, "Yeah, I don't have that." They're like, "Oh, do you have the rule book?" "Nope, don't have that." "All right, come over here. We'll build a character with you," which really was very simple. I was like, "Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that." Me and Mongo have sword hit things, and we started at like 11 in the morning, and I went to bed at 1:30 in the morning. And when I am just tired, guys, and there were still people doing the different adventures, I was so impressed with how they painted a picture as we were just walking along a path in the woods, and they had, wolves attacking us. And as the storyteller was painting a picture of this snow and stuff, and you had other people out in the woods howling like wolves and stuff. And I was like, whoa, they're actually really getting into the kind of the atmosphere, and they really just made it very fun. It was very inviting. Everybody that was there was very happy to have somebody new there. I mean, there was only, I think it was 10 or 15 players, and then the staff or the NPCs. And I had a ton of fun. I've already done my second one, and we actually doubled in size. I'll pat myself on the back a little bit because I couldn't shut up about it. So I brought quite a few new people in, and they had a lot of fun. So now I'm excited to see that grow. I'm excited to go back. I actually learned a lot about how to be a better storyteller just by listening to how they were painting a picture
Mm-hmm.
and drawing things in the sand. And I'm very entertained with it. And it's not quite the same intensity on my body as the full contact competitive one. So when I get done, I don't feel like I've been kicked around for
Right.
3 days. So I'm very impressed with it, and I want to keep going back. I actually learned how much of a bubble I actually had as far as kind of being shy. Like, I'm like, I can sit at a table and role play and throw dice. But all of a sudden, when you're in a live action situation and they're like, what is you going to do? And I'm like, oh, wait, I can pick locks. I don't remember how that works. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I think I have a thing. And like, I actually a few times got kind of nervous. And then I went, I've done this all the time. Why am I nervous? And then I remembered it was that new
Right.
experience feeling. So it was nice to have that. I've gone as far as most of my Christmas list is things for the LARP.
Oh, okay.
I don't,
Nice.
I don't know if my wife's quite figured it out. Like I've got a leather bound book so I can take notes. I actually got a lock pick set on there because my character can pick locks.
Yeah, nice.
So when they actually say, oh, this door's locked, I'm going to like, and I can pretend to be picking a lock, even though I'll just be me wiggling to, because I really don't know how to pick a lock.
Yeah.
So
there's tutorials, YouTube. You figure it
actually, the kit I got has a tutorial and a practice lock.
out. Oh, nice.
So I will try it just because I'm curious, and knowing me after 10 minutes and it doesn't work, I'll just, fine, this isn't what's working. Or I'll figure it out in 1 minute and I'll just start picking every lock I can find.
Oh, yeah. Just willy-nilly.
Yeah. So obviously I'm pretty excited for that. I'm excited to bring my friend, get some of my friends involved and see them experience it too. And it's also kind of nice because I'm a player in that, where normally at a table I'm the GM,
Right. Yep.
which is, I'm not complaining. It's just nice to be a player once in a while.
Oh, 100%. I'm a happy forever GM, but I really relish those times I get to play, which is one of the reasons why I like going to conventions is I get to play. I also get to learn. I'm playing with a bunch of different people, bunch of different GMs, DMs, different games, systems, different styles. And, I'm there to have fun, but I'm always trying to learn. And sometimes, as I said, sometimes a bad example is a good example. So sometimes like a game may not go well. And I'm like, okay, I didn't like that, but why? And are there things that they did or didn't do that I think contributed to me not having fun? And then I try to make sure I minimize those in my own running. Or if something I was like, that was amazing. How can I steal that? How can I use that myself in my game? So I'm always trying to get better.
All right, your turn. What's next for you?
Man. So probably you've already mentioned it, but I will say the faculty retreats, which are kind of like mini conventions in a way. But basically these are twice a year specifically for the RPG Academy faculty. We get together in what we call the spring retreat, which this year is going to be a little earlier than spring. We go to Grand Rapids area, Michigan, which is where Chris and a lot of the other Redemption folks are from. And in the past, we've gotten a hotel. This year, we actually might do next year, might do an Airbnb. We're talking about that right now. And then in the fall, we do one in Oxford, Ohio, which is like right on the border of Indiana. In fact, I think it's actually Oxford, Indiana. I don't know. I put in Oxford and it finds it. And these are kind of like, they're not quite, how would I say it? I mean, they're just like aggrandized gaming weekends. There's like 30 people there at most, but they're all people that we know and, our friends and our family. And we just game for like 3 straight days. And that's all we do. We get some food, we hang out. There's some adult beverages for people who partake. I do not, but I don't mind hanging out with people when they're, sipping their bourbons or the whatnot. And we just play games and it is so much fun. Again, it's really not a lot of role playing. That's the one thing that's kind of weird as like a role playing game focused person and podcaster. Both of us are. The majority of what we do with these is board games, mostly because it's harder to like divide out that way. And most role playing games take so long. You're playing 3 to 4 or 5 hours. That's a big healthy chunk of time that we normally would be board gaming. But I focus on board games that I don't often get to play. Like I love Hanabi. It's like my favorite game in the world. And we definitely play Hanabi at every single faculty retreat.
Yep.
but we don't play. That's not what we play most of. I break out some of the big games I don't always get to play. I try to learn new games that someone else knows. So it's just absolutely two of my favorite weekends period of the year. And then again, starting last year, I'm now bringing my boys to them and as well. And that was a really big thing for me to see them just jump in and basically just be players. Like they weren't my kids in some way. They were just two other people that were at the faculty retreat. They were jumping in games. They were learning games and just, I'm a proud nerd papa moment when that happened to me. So it was a big deal. And I'm just really looking forward to them again.
Yeah. And this year we can tie the spring one in with this guy's 50th.
Yep.
Which means I don't have to have a bunch of people over here, and my wife's not going to be able to paint the house black and do the whole 50th birthday thing, because I can say, no, I'd rather do it this way, which she's already asked me, what do you want to do? And I'm like, everybody else around us has done surprise parties and stuff like that for their 50th. And I'm like, I don't want to do any of that. If we're going to do something, just go have a nice dinner. You could make fun of me there type thing.
Right, yeah.
You can't really bring me a walker because I have an office full of them. So those jokes aren't going to really fly for me. So they'll have to get more creative. So
You've only got me by a few months. I turned 50 just 3 months after you next year. So kind of the cruise is sort of like my 50th birthday present as part of that as well. But yeah, again, just getting to hang out with you and all the other folks is a big deal, and happy to be somewhat part of your 50th. Technically, it's we will leave before your 50th, but I'm sure there'll be some element of celebration for you in there.
Close enough. A day or two early is not a big deal.
That's right.
I actually have to write a new module this year.
Ooh.
Yeah, I've been running the same Star Wars modules at Acadecon for many years. And I jokingly said a long time ago, I'll write a new one when they stop filling up. I had a player cancel the day of.
Oh.
She couldn't be there. And I was like, oh. And I even said to the players, I go, ah. And I was like, does anybody want to join real quick? And somebody goes, why? I go, because I'm kind of lazy and don't want to have to write another module. And they all asked me, and I was like, oh, that's fine. I'll write another one. But it's kind of nice because then I can retire one of them that I have been running that I like running them, but sometimes I end up on autopilot mode, and I feel like that might take away from what the players are experiencing, because I've run it enough that there really aren't any surprises. Nobody's come up with anything new.
Right.
I'm just like, yep, they're going to take one of these 4 paths. Even though I've tried to hint that there's more, they always seem to go one of these 4 paths. So it'll be fun to write a new one and play test it and then bring it to a Acadecon and see. I just have to decide what system I'm going to do. Am I going to keep a Star Wars? Am I going to do back to Shadow of the Demon Lord? Or am I going to do something different?
Well, there's the Weird Wizard now, which is the less grim-darky version of Shadow of the Demon Lord. So if you want to, not necessarily family-friendly, but not quite as dark and gruesome, there's that.
I'd have to learn it.
I mean, it's the same system. I think I don't think mechanically it's very different. I think it's more just like flavor. But I have the books. I haven't dove into them yet, but that's my understanding.
Yeah. I haven't either. So we'll see. We'll see what I decide to do. Yeah. Knowing me, I'll procrastinate until June and then scramble and be like, oh no, I've got 5 months to get this done. And
that's my process. It's not scrambling. That's just how my brain works. The last thing I will throw out is Lord McAllister's birthday, which is another event that I run every year at Acadecon. Basically, I run 2 things every year. I run the Scooby-Doo Dread, and then I run Lord McAllister's birthday, which is a murder mystery kind of LARP that I wrote a few years ago, and it's just a great time. I have a group of friends who usually play the NPC roles. And then we have 8 spots for players, and it's very, a classic murder mystery sort of thing, but it's like D&D inspired. So all the players are somewhat, they have abilities that are kind of like, if not D&D, certainly like role-playing type of thing. It's a ton of fun. Again, the year that it went the worst, still great. Even when things kind of fell apart for some reasons, people still had a really good time. So it's just something I really enjoy running. And, again, like everything else, we make little tweaks every year, little iterations. Thank you. My brain just shut down, to make things a little bit better and, that kind of thing. But overall, it's a ton of fun. I was talking about running it for my kid. My oldest, he'll be 15 next month. And he kind of wanted me to run it for his friends. He's a theater kid. He's been doing plays, and he's now doing musical in high school. And so he's got all these theater friends. But it's not adult, but there are adult relationships, and I'll let people play whatever gender they want. So all the characters are written as they can go either way as far as gender goes, or not even a one or non-binary. But there are physical relationships like marriages, affairs, so that then you can then get in situations where it's like, I live in a very conservative place. So I don't care. My kid doesn't care, but I'm a little worried that some of the parents of the other kids might be upset if they're doing this role play LARP and they're suddenly in a same-sex relationship. So just trying to be mindful of where I live. But it's also just, I don't know, I'm thinking about maybe trying to rewrite it as like a high school version. But I've run it, so I don't know. It's just I'm daunted by the idea of having to write it. So kind of like you, I'm like sort of like getting to so close that if I'm either going to have to do it because I don't have time or not. But I don't know. I'm thinking about trying to do that because I think he would have a really good time. I think he would absolutely love doing that. Because he's also been wanting to be an NPC, because there's been a couple times where we've had openings for cast members, and he wanted to do that. But I was like, well, I kind of want you to play the first time, so I've kind of pushed him away from doing that. But once he's done it, he could fill in, because I actually think he would be really good as a couple of the different roles. So if I had those openings, I think he could do it. But yeah, if anybody who gets a chance to come to a Catacon, Scooby-Doo Dread, Star Wars Dread, and Lord McAllister's birthday, and also your Star Wars, which I guess is going to be a new one, but in any of the events that Chris or I run, I think you would have a really good time at. All right. Well, this has been about an hour, so I think we're going to kind of wrap things up here. Again, this was just sort of a test run. Josh did point out I misspelled episode, so I'm going to see if I can fix that in the description when we're done. But going forward, we're going to try to do this at least once a month, probably closer to twice a month. I think, is it going to be Wednesday or Thursday? Did we decide?
I thought we said Wednesdays.
Okay, so probably Wednesdays will be the times that we actually do. And that's when we were doing detention. And probably about 8 o'clock, it'll run for about an hour. In the future, it'll be a little bit more focused on actual like advice, theory, hopefully help get people either started running games or get a little bit better, get a little more comfortable. But there is just like sort of a common conversational tone to these, where we just sometimes talk about shows we've watched, might use them as inspiration. And hopefully that will, again, translate to something that you, dear listener or dear watcher, can use at your table to make your games more fun. So any final words, Chris, as we start to sign off for this inaugural Tabletop Digest episode?
Just looking forward to the new journey.
Fantastic. We've always said at the RPG Academy, it's kind of been our motto that if you're having fun, you're doing it right. And even though we are now on this channel and we are happy to be here, I think that's an element I want to keep, because it truly has been my sort of guiding star for everything I've ever done as far as running games and trying to help other people run games. So I'm going to sign off this show the same way. And thank you for being here. I hope you've enjoyed. Hopefully you'll come back as we make this a regular part. But when you are sitting down to run a game, or maybe you just got done running a game and you're trying to evaluate how it went, just remember, if you had fun, you did it right.
Yeah,
and so thanks, and we'll see you next time. Bye, everybody. And now I got to figure out how to stop this.